We welcome you, dear sisters, to Bethel. The purpose of this discussion is to bring to your attention matters of great importance regarding your relationship with Jehovah and with others. In a world that is alienated from Jehovah and that is controlled by a spirit bent on making Jehovah's people unfit for sacred service, we want to admonish you to continue to keep your path clean before Jehovah and his organization. We live in a wicked world that actively tries to mold everyone into its ways. Please turn to Romans chapter 12 and verse 2. Take note of the strong statement that Paul, under inspiration, makes. And stop being molded by this system of things, but be transformed by making your mind over, so that you may prove to yourselves the good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Paul says that we are to stop being molded. Then he continues, be transformed by making your mind over. Satan's world delights in practices that can make us unclean and unfit in Jehovah's eyes, even in seemingly small ways. Unless we take strong measures, we will be influenced by the world, even in subtle ways. The spirit of the world is powerful. So, how can we maintain our clean standing before Jehovah? Attraction to the opposite sex is normal and something that Jehovah created within us. Yet, in our imperfect state, there are things that we have to be aware of. The governing body loves you and wants you to experience the immense joy that comes from serving Jehovah with a clean conscience. So it's for this reason that we share with you frank and specific counsel related to matters of conduct in two areas: your personal habits and in your dealings with others. Let's discuss some of the things that you must be on guard against in your personal habits. Dress and grooming is important for all of Jehovah's people, but for those serving at Bethel, it is especially important that thought be given in this area. Brothers and sisters, parents and young ones, look to the worldwide Bethel family as examples of modest dress and grooming. Dear sisters, please avoid short skirts or dresses above the knee, tight-fitting, revealing, low-cut, or otherwise immodest clothing. If you do not give thought to what you wear and how you groom, you will likely be influenced by the world's fashions. This applies not only when at meetings, but also during times that allow for more casual dress and when we're working in our assignments. Why should you sisters be particularly mindful of this? Because such immodest dress can be harmful to Christian brothers and even some sisters. Clothes today are designed to sexually excite others, to make the wearer sexy. We're certain that none of you would intentionally desire to make it more difficult for brothers to resist unclean thoughts. Realistically, you must recognize that generally, men are more affected by the desire of the eyes as respects physical attraction. One young man said, I personally find it rather hard to think only pure thoughts about younger women when I see the way they dress. The Watchtower, back in December 1961, had a question from readers that asked, how can girls guard against temptation in this sex-crazy world? The Watchtower said this: it is interesting to note that the male animal has no season in which he is not willing to engage in the breeding act. If we humans would take a lesson from these creatures, we would learn something of importance in matters of sex as to its purpose and the results of its operation. End of quote. Men are generally more easily aroused. The August 1st, 1969 Watchtower said, Christian women have the obligation not to dress provocatively, not to tempt men to keep looking at them, and so reap a prideful pleasure in noting how they're able to play upon the emotions of men. So, using your power of reason, you must realize that Satan's system molds the fashion industry so that the clothing worn by women will excite men. Please, be mindful of the need to be modest in what you wear at all times. Here's a situation that might arise. A sister views a list of recommended pictures and videos displayed by a social media application. Maybe it's installed on her phone. She comes across some provocative pictures. She doesn't open the pictures, but she lingers over what they call thumbnail images, which are small images reduced in size. As she studies them, she becomes aroused to the point of engaging in self-abuse. Anyone can happen upon pornography accidentally. This world has made it easy for that to happen. But if one intentionally practices exposing oneself to such harmful images, that may lead to such uncleanness. Up until now, we've discussed personal matters. But let's talk about conduct with others. First, we will discuss something that is very common in the world with single and married persons alike: flirting. In some instances, individuals may not realize what flirting involves. It can involve using flattering speech or provocative body language towards someone with no intention of pursuing an honorable, romantic relationship, or not being in a circumstance to pursue a romantic relationship. For example, a sister compliments a brother on the way he is dressed for work. On another occasion, she mentions his new haircut. And from time to time, she sends him a text message to check to see that he's arrived home safely. Now, such actions on the part of a married sister or a single sister towards a married man are totally inappropriate and lead to disastrous consequences. If the sister and brother are single, what should she consider? That this brother would be justified in concluding that she has a romantic interest in him. And if she is not interested in pursuing a courtship, she's flirting. And that's damaging. Flirting is cruel and dangerous. It is a form of lying that disregards Jehovah's counsel. The Bible is very plain in its expressions on lying. Proverbs 12:22 says, "Lying lips are detestable to Jehovah." The husband, who may be older, hugs her affectionately in public and views her as his little sister. She visits their room often and feels very comfortable talking to the brother about her concerns. The sister feels that they are like family. There's nothing wrong with such relationships. In fact, they can have a wholesome, nurturing effect. Expressions of affection toward others vary greatly in different cultures. However, good discernment and judgment must be exercised. Please be mindful that hugging, stroking, and kissing a brother on the cheek may be intended to convey wholesome love. But keep in mind that marriage does not make the brother immune from becoming emotionally attached or sexually aroused. And if you feel a particularly strong emotional attachment to the brother, it can lead to trouble. If you are a married sister, your husband has the right to expect that he is your closest confidant and the sole object of your romantic attention. Of course, there's a need for balance. Exercising appropriate caution does not mean that you should be stiff and aloof around members of the opposite sex, married or single. Nonetheless, at Proverbs 28:26, the Bible makes the point that we cannot trust our own heart. Inappropriate use of electronic devices and cell phones is another area that the world promotes. Sexting in the world is common, particularly among young people. This involves sending sexually explicit messages, images, or pictures. How can this happen among Jehovah's people? A sister video chats with her boyfriend. As they draw closer, their conversation turns to discussing sexual subjects. They are progressively more unclean, becoming sexually explicit, perhaps even sending provocative photographs. Both need assistance from the elders. If they develop a practice of engaging in immoral conversations that involve obscene speech or gross uncleanness, such conduct might be a basis for judicial action. Judicial action refers to a situation where a serious violation of God's laws has occurred and a judgment needs to be made to determine whether the individual qualifies to continue as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. How sad for matters to reach that point. Please turn to 1 Corinthians 6:18. It reads, "Flee from sexual immorality. Every other sin that a man or a woman may commit is outside his body. But whoever practices sexual immorality is sinning against his own body." In recent years, we've been helped by the faithful and discreet slave to have a clear understanding of what is involved in the Bible's use of the word porneia, or fornication. It relates to sexual relations involving persons not married to each other and includes acts such as oral sex, anal sex, and manipulating or fondling another person's genitals. There can be porneia even if there is no skin-to-skin contact. For example, if a couple are courting and become passionately inflamed, and he lies on top of his girlfriend, and they simulate sexual intercourse, even with clothes on, this constitutes porneia. Much has been stated on this matter in our publications. One reference is the February 15th, 2004 Watchtower, pages 13 and 14. Satan and the demons are desperately trying to corrupt God's people. Unfortunately, some have fallen victim to these snares. That is why, out of love, we find it necessary to be so clear on what Jehovah has set as standards. Although Satan has managed to influence the world's thinking on the subject of sexual immorality and even of homosexuality, Jehovah's view has not changed. That is why we want to emphasize the need to follow Paul's inspired advice. Stop being molded by this system of things. Feed your love for Jehovah's commandments and your hatred for the perversions of Satan's system. Be honest with yourself and Jehovah about your weaknesses. Make it a matter of prayer, as did the psalmist. It is important to dwell according to knowledge, both with others and with yourself. Being aware of the difference in the makeup, physically and emotionally, of men and women. Over the years, the faithful slave has given us much to think about. For example, back in the July 8th, 1965 issue of The Awake, pages 16 to 19, is the informative article, "A Mother Talks to Her Daughters." And in the December 8th, 1968 Awake, pages 16 through 19, a father talks to his son. What should you do if you now realize that you need some assistance? Please, take advantage of mature sisters or the elders. According to James 5:14 and 15, these men are Jehovah's arrangements to raise us up. It is our heartfelt prayer that you, our precious sisters, may keep on guard so as to joyfully walk in the law of Jehovah forever. We pray for Jehovah's continued blessing on you.